Okay, so again, this session will be recorded, and once it's done, usually in a day or two, we will have this webinar posted to our webinar section on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, type in CADlink, you will find our channel. We have a lot of videos there. So if you haven't visited our YouTube channel, I would definitely recommend it. Even though there are videos that are not DTF specific, it's okay. All of the Digital Factory videos we have do coincide with what I will be covering today. So whether it's DTG, UV, DTF, Oki white transfer, a lot of the features in the RIP are going to be identical. The beauty of this is that if you know one of our products, and this is kind of our little motto, is if you know one, you will know them all. So if you know one of our Digital Factory products very well, you should know them all because they're basically all identical. The only difference is drivers and profiles, print modes that are being used. Okay, so that's what really kind of sets each package apart, is the way the queues are configured and the print modes that are being used. Okay, so for now, let me just go in here. I'm going to make a couple of changes here. Just so that way when we're going through the printing process, I can just run files without actually printing anything. So, okay. Good morning, Boris. If you could kill your video, I'll be recording the session, so I just don't want everybody's video showing up. Perfect, thank you. All right, and like I said, I would like to keep everybody muted during the session. And again, after the session, you can unmute and we will go through some Q&A. If you have any questions during the session, please use the chat window, and I can answer any questions via the chat window. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and start the recording now. All right, there we go. Okay, well, welcome everybody. My name is Rick Rivera. I'm the EMEA sales manager for CADlink Technology. And today's webinar will be covering this new workflow. Actually, this workflow has been around for a while, but right now it's actually getting more popular, especially now, with these, custom modified printers. We're starting to see printers coming in from China as well, that are supporting this DTF workflow, direct to film workflow. Okay, so the session today will be covering our Digital Factory DTF edition. The product I'm going over is our desktop edition, but our standard edition is identical. The only difference are the drivers that come with the product. So the DTF desktop edition includes all drivers A4 size up to A2 size. Okay, so that's your Epson L1800, for instance, P600, P800, and others as we continue to build our driver library. Okay, the DTF edition, direct to film edition, the standard edition, includes all of these drivers, but also supports printers 24 inches and larger. So this includes your printers coming in from China. We are building drivers for some of these printers for the dealers that are selling them. So if you're looking to invest into a product or to sell a product based on the Chinese printers, if you're a dealer, talk to us. If you're not, if you're an end user, talk to your dealer. Andreas, could you kill your video, please? I'd like everybody to have their video disabled. All right, so we're going to go through the entire workflow of our product, all of the features, and then we'll go over some kind of the tips and tricks on, things you can do. Okay, now the way our software is laid out is, this is what we call our VPM, our virtual print manager, a visual print management system. Okay, so pretty much everything you need is going to be located on this single screen. Okay, there should be no reason that you have to go into, another window, another tab, what have you. So if you have your print modes set up properly, your cues configured properly, we make it to where you should be at a point where you can just simply drag and drop a file, maybe resize it, and then send it to print. Okay, so you shouldn't have to really go through, tweaking colors and things like that. That should be all part of your print mode or your color adjust or with the cue. Okay, now our software is cue based, meaning that for each printer, we have a dedicated cue. Okay, now if I go to my cue and manage cues, okay, this is where I can set up my cues. I can make copies. I can enable and disable what is viewed. So if I disable all of these, you'll notice that I have the cues up here. If I disable all of these, close, now I'm just left with the one cue. If I want to create multiple cues, so for instance, maybe I want to create a cue for A4 size paper and a cue for A3 size paper, I can do that. I can simply select the cue, make the copy, say A3, oops, A3. Okay, and now I can organize it, and now I've got two cues. Okay, I've got one that could be for A4 size, and then this cue here, I can go in and set it for a different size. Or if you're using a machine that has a roll feed, we are looking at modifying our print modes for the printers that do support roll feed from the factory. So we are going to have two cues. We will have a sheet cue and a roll cue for those particular devices. Okay, but if you have a RIP, you can always add a cue, and you can add as many cues as you want. Okay, there's no limit. Also, the cue manager is where you set up your port. Okay, so if you click the down arrow key here, this is where you can go in and you can select your printer port. Okay, and you can also delete cues from here. Okay, now this control panel option, if you install this, it's going to install the printer as a control panel type printer. So if you're using, Paint or some other type of program, you can actually send jobs to the queue via the file print command. Okay. Not many people use it, but you do have that option available to you. Okay. All right. So everything's laid out here. So this particular quadrant of our program is where you would import your files. As far as our file import, we do support pretty much all vector and bitmap formatted images. So BMP, GIF, JPEG, PNG, PSD, AI native, EPS, PDFs as well, and SVGs. Okay, the only file format we don't support natively would be Corel. Okay, but if you're working with Corel, you can export as a PNG, TIFF, EPS, PS, PDF, what have you, okay? Okay, so this is where you would import your files. And up here, you have your file information, and you can modify what you want to see by right-clicking on the bar there. And you can specify, you know, what material you want. So, you know, for substrate, I'm printing on film, so substrate really doesn't matter, so I can get rid of that. You know, job spooled, I can get rid of that. If I want time might be needed. I'm going to get rid of it. Pages I can get rid of. Let's see, open page I can get rid of. The file type I'll keep. The device I'm not worried about because I'm only using the one device. Okay, and then you can rearrange these around as you want to. So if I wanted my job cost to be, you know, the first thing that shows up. Okay, so I can set that over here next to the status. Okay, the print mode is useful to have. Your copies. Okay, the file type, dimensions, and then you have your port. Okay, now the right quadrant here is your preview window. Okay, so this is where you can preview jobs. Now, if you have multiple jobs in the queue, okay, this is something you can't do in products like the AcroRip. Okay, you can actually import multiple files into the RIP and multiple different formats. So you JPEGs, BMGs. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, this right quadrant is your preview screen. So this is the preview on the page. So right now I have my page size set for A4 for now. Okay, and in here, when I import the image, I can resize it any way I want. Okay, so I can resize it manually. If I want this to be a specific size, I can put the size in here. I can also set my positioning on the page. So if I select it, I can center at the top of the page. Okay. If I have it down here in the middle and I want to center it in horizontally. If I want to resize to fit to the width, I can select fit to width and it'll resize it there. I can center top. If I want to fit to page, okay, so if I bring in a smaller image and I want it to fit the page, I can just select that. If I fit to page height, it'll fit to page height, but the width obviously will get clipped in this case. Okay. And if you want it, you know, smaller image and you want it centered on the page, you can click the center page centering. Now the view here is multi-page view. Okay, so in here, I can scroll through or zoom out and it'll show all of the pages here. Now, in the view menu, you can view single page mode and this will view a single page. Now, if you notice, I have this file selected, so it's showing me that file. If I select another image, okay, it'll go through. So if I want to work with one file at a time, I can as well. Okay. Okay, you have your zoom settings here. You can also enable your grids. Okay, if you want, grid view. All right. This lower left corner area is where your jobs are reserved. Okay, so if you print a file, and actually let me go back in here real quick and set this to null. So if I go through and, you know, take a file and print this out real quick. So if I choose this one here and I just go ahead and say print, it'll come up to the top of the list here. It'll go through the RIP process. And then it's going through the printing process. Now, once it's done printing, okay, it's going to show up in your reserved list. Okay, this is where your reserved jobs are. Now you can do a couple of things with it here. You can right click on it and print it again, and it'll go through the print process. Okay. We can, if you want to modify the job again, you can drag it up top and then modify it. You can also take this job, which has your print mode settings, so basically your profile, all of that is with this job. You can actually take this and archive it. So you can actually save this file as an archived file. So I go up here, go in here, and you notice it'll show up as a job backup file. Okay, and it'll apply the name of the file with today's date. Okay, and it has the original date of the file as well. So we can take that off. And so this is going to save as a job backup. Okay, so if I go in here, go to my webinar files, and I'm going to save it to that location. So if I were to delete this file, okay, up here in the jobs menu, I can actually restore that job. Okay, so there's my job. All right, so knowing that all the settings are in that job already. Okay. Now, if this job is already ripped and I look at the file and I say, you know, I want to make some changes to that file, or I want to use a different print mode. Okay. Now, if the job was already ripped, okay, what you notice, if I double click on it, okay, it doesn't give me many options in here. I can't really change anything. But the beauty of our rip is instead of having to re-import that file to work with it and so forth, I get to simply right click on it and click open job. Now, when I open the job, that dropped back down here. Where did it go? Okay, so there's the job here. Now, at this point, if I double click on the job, okay, now I've got all of my options available to me that I can apply to that file. Okay. So very unique features there. Okay. Now, in this window as well, we can select browse, our browse option. And what this does is this allows us to go through and browse our files as well. So if I go to my browse window here, I can click here, and from this window, I can just simply drag and drop into the RIP. Okay, so I could drag and drop my files into the RIP, no problem. And yeah, okay. So this window actually has two functions. Okay, so you can use the browse or the reserve function. Now, the lower right quadrant here, okay, is where you can select your page size for the queue, page size for the job, okay, also your layout. Now, if you have a single file here, for instance, this particular file here, and I want 10 copies of that. Okay, I'm not going to use the copy feature. The copy is how many images I can put on a single page. Okay, but if my image is large, obviously I can only do 1 copy per page. Okay, but what I could do is if I want to do a repeat, I can output this 10 times. Okay, so if I select that file and now rip it, and actually I do want let's see, where did it go? Oh, it's still ripping. Okay, so now if we go up here during the rip process, now you'll see under copies, it's going to give me my copies. Okay, so that's what this feature does. It's basically a repeat. So I'm going to go ahead and open that page. All right. So in here is where you can set up your queue settings, your page settings, and your job settings. Okay, so the job settings, what you have here is you have your copies. Okay, so if I make this image a little smaller here, okay, you have your copies. Okay, now with copies, I can just simply use these pull downs and drag it out. Okay, so as you can see, it's only going to set that many copies on my page. So I can center that top center, and if I need a slight margin from the top, oops, did the wrong one. If I want a slight margin from the top of the page, I can drop it down like so, okay? A lot of times you have a lot of these modified printers that require additional top margin and bottom margins. Because, you know, when you're pulling out the additional rollers or pizza wheels, the printer now has no way of moving that paper. Okay, so this allows you to go ahead and set those margins in here. Okay. You also have your print modes. Okay, so depending on the printer you're working with, you'll have a drop-down list. And in here, you can specify your different print modes. Okay. Now, our RIP is always going to ship with a default print mode. So, you know, it could be defaulted to, you know, black opaque or black rasterized, so forth. Or it could be to one of these colored ones where it doesn't have any knockout or anything like that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back to 1 copy. Okay. Now, you can also crop images within the RIP. So let me find an image we can crop real quick. So like this image here, I want to crop, you know, some of the side areas here off. So I can use the crop feature. Takes me to my crop window, which is also your tiling window. Okay, so the crop is also your tiling. So if I want to crop this image down, crop the edges, I can do that. Go ahead and create. And let me go back to single page view. It makes it a little easier. There we go. So you'll notice that it actually cropped that image down. Now, if I were printing on, say, A4 sheets, but I wanted this image to be much bigger than that. Say I wanted to print, you know, do a transfer for, say, a towel or something like that. And for this, I do need to go back to multi-page view. There. So, for instance, I want my final page size or my final image size to be 40 centimeters. Okay. If I go to the crop window again, let's see, let me reset. There we go. Now, if I do this, I can do it by rows and columns, or I can do it by dimensions. Okay. I can do it manually. Okay. I can also set a tiling overlap if I needed to. Okay, and you can even print overlapping lines. Okay, now if I create this, it's going to split this image into 4 automatically. Okay, so if you see down here at the bottom of the page, we've got the image split into 4 with my overlaps. Okay. The other thing down here that we can do is we could duplicate images. Okay, so if I wanted to duplicate this, I can duplicate it. The problem with this, though, is if you're duplicating, it's going to rip each file individually. Okay, so this is where we have the difference between duplicate and repeat. Okay, so if we use the repeat function, which was here, 10 copies, okay, it's going to repeat, basically rip once, print 10 times. Okay, so it's going to print one file, which is going to be a smaller rip file, using less resources, and it's just going to basically reprint that job. Okay, if we duplicate, it's going to rip and print each job as an individual file. Okay, another feature we have is our step and repeat. Okay, so we do have customers that want to print, say, a pattern. Okay, so if I wanted to print a pattern on this page and use this image as my pattern, and I want a full page of this, I could click crop. Oh, I'm sorry, not crop, copies, and then click copies one more time. And this brings you into your step and repeat window. And in here you have the pattern style, continuous row offset, alternate row offset. So I'm going to select the alternate row offset, click area fill, okay. Apply it. Oh, looks like it didn't take it. I didn't take it. Now let's do this again. Let's take off the area fill. And we'll just manually pop in our values here. Okay. So obviously this is an A4 page size, so I can't really put too many images on here. Actually, let me cancel. Let me make this image just a bit smaller. Oh, bring that one back in. All right, so I'll just go ahead and take this image, make it much smaller. Right about there. Go to copies, copies. Here's our step and repeat. Okay, so I've got my step and repeat here, and you do have this kind of offset. And you can do either 1 to 4 offset, 1 to 3, 1 to 2 offset. You can also adjust your spacing to try to bring that overlap in a bit. Okay, so we can do something like this. All right. And with that, we can add a few more images. We'll go ahead and apply it. And as you can see here, now we've got a pattern. Okay, so this is cool if you're doing, you know, a shirt that, you know, a bag maybe or something like that, tote bag, and you want to put a pattern print on it. You can do something like this. Okay, so these are some of the tools you have in the window here. Okay. Now, that's the program kind of layout. The menus obviously are kind of self-explanatory, but I'll go through them again. Again, the file is import file or find files. The queue, this is where you would set up your queue settings. We also have some wizards here that allow you to kind of dial your printer in. So we have a wizard here for setting your max white ink Okay, this is useful to get just the right amount of white ink being laid down for a particular image. Okay, so the way this works, the way this works is you pick, a page size, for instance. Nope. And you pick, an image you want to work with. Okay, so maybe we'll do this one here. And we'll go ahead and set the image size. That's fine there. We'll go next. And you basically have a start point and your max, which is 50, and the increment. And then here we can select our print max white ink chart. Okay. Actually, what I want to do is let's do this. I'm going to make this a little easier. I'm going to get rid of all of this. There we go. So we'll go back through this again. We'll do A3, set up my graphic, import the file, my image size, next. And then what I do is I print my max white ink. And what this is going to do, it's going to create 6 files, 6 images, or 6 copies of this image. And for each copy, it's going to have a different, a varying level of white that's being applied to it. So 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. We'll go ahead and rip this. And what this does is it allows you to customize the amount of white ink that you need for your film, the type of ink you're using, okay? This is one of our biggest hurdles in the DTF market is there are many different ink manufacturers in the marketplace, inks, different films, different powders, things like that. The profiles we're creating are based on inks that are being provided to us by our distributors, okay? So the profiles we have should be suitable, but they may not be exact, okay? And the reason for this is because of the ink, okay? Each ink may have its own formulation, okay? And, we do our best to profile it based on what we have, okay? So if, if you're having some color issues, things like that, talk to your dealers. Hopefully they have the equipment to be able to profile and can create custom profiles for the ink, film, and powders they sell. Okay, so in here, this created 2. Well, that's right. We'll go with this one here, and we will go ahead and view the raw data. Now, the cool thing about our software is once you've ripped the file, you can actually view the raw data. Now, when you view the raw data, okay, it gives you some information here. Now, the view raw data should not be used as a pre-flight tool by any means. As you can see here, the colors look kind of washed out. This is not how it's going to print. What we are looking at and how I use view raw data is to see where my white is going to print. So what I do is I always select view all colors as black. And this is where pretty much going to show me where my white is going to be located. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my CMYK channels and just enable my white channels. Okay, so that we get a better look at what our Max White Ink Wizard does. Okay, so as you can see here in the Max White Ink, okay, it's going to give you the different levels of white, okay? So this one here is at 50% white, 60% white, 70, and 80. Now, you're going to notice that at a certain point, it's basically kind of the max you're going to be able to get for that device, okay? Once you have that value, so maybe in this case, my max white ink value is going to be 80. I can go ahead and plug that value in here, select next, And here it gives you some options, okay? You can apply this to the queue, apply it to the current print mode being used, or you could create a new print mode. I always recommend creating a new print mode. Okay, so I always recommend creating a new print mode and adding, a name, such in this case, 80% white. So when I click finish and I click in my window here, I now have this new print mode that I've created. Okay, so this is a nice way of dialing in the amount of white ink you have. And again, the reason for this is because our profiles are going to be based on what we were given. So it's going to be based on the white that I'm using from my dealer for this particular printer. Okay, you may have another white ink or a colored ink that's a little more vibrant or offers more opacity. And this tool is a great tool for adjusting that. You can also set up your black removal. Although our default setting is quite good, you can also set up how much white you want to use under black. Okay. You can also configure the actual amount of choke you want to use as a default. Your color boost is used for the gradient areas of your images. And then we have set photo merge. Okay. What the photo merge does is it gives you kind of that adjustment tweak between photorealistic and graphic mode. Okay, photorealistic is going to give you kind of more details, subtle tones, things like that. And graphics mode tends to be a little more saturated, give you a little more pop. And what photo merge does is kind of allows you to dial it in to get kind of the best of both worlds. Okay, so these are the tools in your queue. Now the jobs menu is where you can actually configure your jobs and modify and so forth. And what we're going to do is bring in a couple of files here just to show you what we can do. And bring that. Okay, some of the tools we have. Okay. So obviously the first tool that I showed you was our crop tool. Okay. So with the crop tool, and let me go ahead and let the other files drop in real quick. All right, so with the crop tool, like I said, this can be used to crop your images. So, if you just want this only, okay, we can crop that right on out, okay? So some of the tools we have under the jobs menu, okay, we have GIMP, which is included with our RIP. Okay, so for instance, with this particular image, if I wanted to add text to it, okay, we do include GIMP. If you're not familiar with GIMP, GIMP is very similar to Photoshop. It's free open source software that we've modified to work in conjunction with our RIP. Okay, so if you need to edit a photo, you want to add text to it, you can use GIMP to do that. So we have this feature built into the RIP. Okay, so this is something other RIPs do not have. Okay, so if I wanted to add text, right? So if I wanted to add that text, drop it in here, up here, CADlink, send it back to Digital Factory. Okay, what it's going to do is it's actually made a copy of that image, and it's going to bring it back into my queue. Okay, so right now it's processing it, and there we go. So now we've got our image back into the queue with the text that I added. Okay, so that's GIMP. We also have our black removal tool. Now, a black removal tool is under our production plugins. Okay, under our production plugins, we have our Knock Me Blackout. When you do that, when you go to the menu, it's going to automatically knock out your black. Okay, you can specify the area that you want to knock out. You can also adjust the amount of knockout. So as I lower the value, I'm lowering the amount of underbase. So I'm basically taking the image and converting it almost into a transparent image. Okay, this kind of works similar to the transparency function in Photoshop. Now, if I put this up higher, it's going to give me more opacity, but it's also going to fill in some of those gradient areas. Okay, the fade outs in these areas. So again, you can adjust these to your liking. Our default is 70, which is quite good. Okay, you can also adjust the midtones. Okay, the transparent areas. Okay, you can make them more transparent or more opaque. You can set a hard clip area and also the opacity. Okay, so we can bump up the opacity as well if we want. We can reset that. If you want to see where the white is going to print, you can click Show Underbase. It's going to show me where my white overprint is going to be. Okay, we can view it as a red mask, or we can even view what it's going to look like on the actual shirt color. Okay, so if I did the knockout black and I want to put it on a dark gray shirt, okay, this is what it would look like. Okay, so that's our black removal, our Knock Me Blackout. You could also set the queue up to automatically knock it out as well. Okay, so we actually created some print modes. Okay, so for instance, this black print mode, if I go in here and change the print mode, now you notice the preview doesn't update. Our preview won't update automatically. We have to regenerate the preview to see the change. So if I go in here, preview it again, run through the process, and there we go. Okay, so we've got our black removal here. Okay. We also have our color removal tool. So if I wanted to take this image and print it to a yellow shirt, I don't need to print that yellow. I can use my Knock Me Color Out tool to knock out that yellow. Simple click, okay? And I can adjust the amount of knockout. And in here, you can knock out up to 4 colors, okay? If I want to see the underbase, or my overprint in this case, I can select that. And if I want to see the shirt color, I can pop that in there. Now, with the shirt color, if you know the exact RGB value of that shirt, you could plug that in here and add that to your custom colors. Okay. So if I wanted to put this on a light blue shirt or even a green shirt, okay, you can do that. Okay. Also, a lot of times you'll download images off the internet, and the black, even though it looks black here on, on the image, it's actually not a true black. If I run my Knock Me Blackout tool on this, you'll notice that it didn't knock out the black. It's almost kind of a gray, okay? That's because this image isn't a true black outline, okay? And what's going to happen is it's going to, when you go to print this, it's not going to give you a nice rich black. So we actually have some tools here called easy adjustments. And in here, you have clean up black, clean up white, and you've got 3 different levels. You can adjust the contrast, increase saturation of an image, make it darker. So if you notice your images are not dark enough, you can use some of these automated tools to kind of give it some pop. So in this case, I'm going to clean up the black 3 times. I'm going to do a big one here. So now I get a nice black. And if I run my black removal now, you'll notice that it does actually now knock out the black entirely. Okay. So if I show the underbase, there's no white that's going to print where that black was. Okay. We also have another tool called supersize image. Now the supersize image, what this does is it allows you to take a low-res image and bump up the quality. If I were to print this image the way it is, the edges would be very kind of pixelated, and there wouldn't be really good detail, especially like in where the teeth are and so forth. Okay, so what I can do is I can bump up this resolution, click OK, and this will update that image and clean it up. And we do a really good job of this. I think we do a better job resampling versus Photoshop, to be honest. You know, we get nice clean edges. Okay, you look here at the edges of the water, and you can adjust the edge sharpness, the smoothness, so forth here as well. But pretty much the default setting should get you pretty much right in that ballpark. Okay, so now if I print this out, it's going to be nice and clean edges and not pixelated. Okay. We also have, let's see here. Just want to go through another image here. Okay, so for instance, this image. Okay, this is a JPEG. So this JPEG does not have the background knocked out. And actually, let me go back here, preview it. Okay, again, if you make a mistake and had the wrong print mode selected, you can change that. Go ahead and, I'm not going to worry about cropping it. Now, this is a JPEG. Now, if I were to go ahead and rip this file and view the raw data. Now, if I went to print this file, okay, this is my white. It's going to print a white square over my entire image. Okay, so it's going to print the white square over my image. Okay, I don't want that. I just want the white to be where the actual image data is. Okay, so with that, I can open my page. And you can right click to get to these tools as well. Okay, so I'm going to go to my production plugins and I'm going to go to my knock me color out. And here, as you can see, it automatically knocks out the white. Click OK. Once it's done updating, I can rip this. And if I view the raw data again, yeah, so this image is not a clean image to begin with, but I can actually use my supersize to clean that up. So it does have some junk around the edge. Okay, now with that, I can open the page. I can even go in here to my easy color adjustments and clean up the white. And can do that. Okay, so we've got a lot of tools within the RIP itself to manipulate your image files and so forth. And therefore, you don't have to be going back and forth between Photoshop and, you know, Illustrator, Corel, what have you. Yeah, this image is not such a good one for this. Yeah, so this one is very pixelated. That one wasn't a good sample to use. But moving right along. I'm trying to see if I've got another one here. That's okay. I'll go with this. All right, so now if we go back to this image, yeah, this one I can use. So with this one I can do knock the color out, knock out the white. Now, we also have some other tools that allow you to bump up your colors and so forth. And what those are the color adjust tools. All right, so we've got color adjust tools. So in here, we can bump up our colors. Okay, so we can do it in this window here. Okay, so, you know, if I wanted all of the colors to be a little bit darker, especially when you're working with dark garments, a lot of times the white is not opaque enough to give you kind of that blocker. And what you end up with is kind of what we call, or what people are calling, dye migration. And so you lose some of the vibrancy when you're doing dark colors. When you do light colors or whites, you get very vibrant colors. And if you do that exact same image on a dark shirt, a lot of times you lose the vibrancy. Okay, has nothing to do with the profile and has everything to do with the opacity of the white powder being used as well. So what you can do is you can actually boost your colors. Okay, so if I wanted to, you know, make all of my colors here darker, I can do so. Now, if I click OK and regenerate that preview, it should give me a darker image. So as you can see here, that image is much darker now. So if I bring the original one back in, to compare the two. Oh, sorry, that one's using different print mode. Generate the preview. And this one I was using a different print mode as well. And so I set the print modes to be identical. So in the color adjust, this is where you can go in and you can make some of these adjustments. Yeah, so as you can see here, this one's much darker than the one below. Okay, you can also adjust the brightness, Saturation you can adjust, but I would not recommend doing too much saturation adjustment because you will throw out the colors at a certain point. You've got your chroma, which is actually a better way of brightening up the images, getting a little more vibrancy. And then the merge works with the photo mode. This is where you can kind of get that balance between photorealistic and a nice punchy graphic. Okay, so these are settings that you can adjust without having to physically touch the ICC profile. You can also set your max wide underbase or overprint. You can also adjust your choke in this window as well. And then we also have our ink removal tools. Now the ink removal tools are used more for doing rasterization and holes. So a good example, I always like to use this image. And we'll duplicate this image. Create a couple of duplicates. Okay, so this is our little Iron Maiden image here. And what we have is we actually have some presets in here. So we've got rasterize with holes, and we have rasterize with stripes. Okay, now the difference is the way we do the ink removal. Okay, now the rasterized, if we look at the black opaque, this is not removing anything, just the black. Okay, so we're not putting any holes or anything into the image. Okay, now black rasterized basically is what we're doing is we're doing a black removal, but we're doing an extensive black removal, and we're putting holes basically going from white to black. So in this particular print mode, you're going to have basically variable holes throughout the image. Black rasterized with holes, this is going to put the same size hole throughout the entire image, and stripes is going to put lines throughout the image. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rip each of these. And as you can see, you could rip multiple files at the same time as well. And we are going a little bit long, but we should be done here in probably another 15 minutes. Now, once I've run these, what I'll do is go ahead and view the raw data. So this is using what we call the opaque setting, okay, no holes. Okay, so this is going to print everything, basically a white base over everything, okay, all the dots and everything. Okay, now on some garments, for instance, on white garments, this is going to give you a really nice punchy image. Even on a black garment, it's going to give you more punch because you've got more opacity, more white ink being laid down, but you're going to get more of that kind of screen printed feel look, almost kind of like a vinyl transfer type feel and look to it. Okay, now what some customers do is they add holes to their files. Okay, and what this will do, in this case, this is our rasterized, and this is using a frequency of 40, an angle of 22, okay, and just using round holes. Now, when you add holes to an image, you are going to basically reduce color, remove color from it. So it is very important to kind of bump up those colors, okay? You can do so in the color adjust by cranking up the colors, saturation, making it darker, okay? But this is going to print. So basically, wherever white was, okay, which one's this one? That's the stripes. That's not the one I want. That was stripes. Okay, so that was our stripes. So this is rasterized. There we go. So this is our rasterized print mode, okay? So the areas that are white, like the text, is going to print solid. And as we go towards the black, the dots will vary in size from smaller to larger dots. Okay, this is what gives you kind of that halftone effect. Now, that image does look really well on a shirt, but you can't use this on all images. Images are going to be very dependent. If you try to use this rasterized mode on a photo, it's going to look horrible, okay? On a photo, I would go with basically an opaque finish. If we go with our holes, okay, black rasterized with holes, this is going to put the same size hole or same size dot throughout the entire image and variable holes in the transparency. Okay, so as you can tell, this one, all the dots are the same size, okay, except for the areas of transparency. The areas of transparency will actually have variable dots. So like the smoke in the background, the flames, things like that. Those transparent areas will have some variable holes. So this kind of gives you some decent effects as well. And then we have our stripes. Okay, which is going to do exactly what it says. Going to lay out stripes. Now, to change these, we can go into our manage print modes. Okay, let me go ahead and get rid of this one. Oh, actually, I can't get rid of that one. I've got a job there. All right, so we'll go ahead and select this one here, for instance, this rasterized print mode. When you open it, click on the color layer, we have our ink removal. Okay, there's two things you can do here. First one is your processing options. This is where you can set up your knock me blackout. Okay, so when I import an image, it's going to automatically apply this. I don't have to manually do it. Okay, so I could actually set the cue up to knock out black. Unfortunately, we don't have the capability to knock out color. So we don't have like an automated color knockout. Okay, but for black, we can knock it out automatically. The color boost is only going to affect the transparent areas. It's not going to affect the image data. Okay, only the transparencies. So if you want the transparent areas, that background area, a little more punch in the colors, you can actually boost the color in those areas. Here you can set your choke. Okay, we can also go in and set our printer option. Depending on the printer you're using and the driver, these options will vary. Okay, when we write drivers, especially for Epson printers, we will include basically the options the OEM manufacturer provides. Okay, so under media type, there is no DTF film because DTF film does not exist in the OEM products. Okay. So here you can specify your resolution as well. Okay, and we have our dot size. What we found with the DTF is you really can't do small dot sizes due to the ink configuration and the head configurations. Small dot sizes are very difficult to do. You've got to have an ink that's dead on. And as far as we know, we haven't found one that's dead on yet to jet through the nozzles to give us those small picoliter dot size. For instance, the L1800, we're using only medium and large dots for placement. So the print mode we use for this one as the default is our 1440 720 big dots. Okay. Now, to set your holes up or the half toning, here is where you can set that. So we would enable that setting. Okay. And here we would change our frequency, our angle, our shape. Okay. So if I chose maybe inverted round instead of round as the shape, click save. If I go ahead and open up that print mode, okay, so there's the open print mode. If I double click on that, it'll open up the print mode, and I'll go through here and I'll change that to inverted round, and I will rip that job again. So this is the beauty, again, of our RIP, is you can go back and forth, edit out, make adjustments. And if we view this raw data now, so now the holes are inverted round. So now you get basically a different type of effect, the raster effect, okay? And again, I can take, open that. And say, you know, I want to change the dot size. Maybe I want 30. Go ahead and rip that again. Okay, so ink removal is where you would do basically your half toning effects. Okay. And again, this is, you know, this one's going to put larger holes. Okay, so as you can see, the holes are actually a lot larger, inverted round. Okay. So those are the different print modes that we have. Okay. We also have some unique features in the RIP. Okay. Come on. All right. So we also have costing in our RIP. Okay. So if you want to know how much your job is going to cost, you can add in your material cost, which could be the film. Surface treatment cost could be the powder cost. You can try to break that down. You can make it by a unit or, you know, by square foot, what have you. Your ink costs, you can also add in ink contingency. Now for DTF printing, I probably would recommend maybe 10% ink contingency. This is going to account for head cleanings, especially if you're using like an L1800, you want to shake the cartridges and run a cleaning cycle before your print jobs to start the day. So you may need to add maybe a 10% contingency in there, which accounts for that cleaning cycles and so forth, okay? You can also set up, where are we at here? In our printer status, we can also set up automated head cleanings. So you can actually set up a automated head cleaning sequence to maybe run a head cleaning every 4 hours or every 8 hours. And as long as the RIP is running and the queue is active, it will perform that cleaning cycle, okay? If there's any other maintenance dialogues that you want, you can add those in here. So if I wanted to put a notice here, maybe every, you know, maybe every 4 hours, you know, I can add in a notice. Okay, so every 4 hours I'll get a little prompt that's going to shake ink tank. And it kind of lets me know, okay, I need to go to my printer and shake the ink tank. Okay, so you can add these kind of little reminders and so forth in the RIP. Okay. Okay, so that was the costing. We also have the printer status and settings. Let me go back here and set my port back the way it was. And if we click on this icon, it actually connects me to the driver, to the printer, okay? And from here, I can do a nozzle check and a head cleaning, okay? Again, this is going to vary depending on printer. We may even have on some printers adjustment settings in here, okay? But for this particular printer, we have just the print nozzle check pattern and the head cleaning. Now, for printers that actually have counters, ink counters, it'll show you your remaining ink as well. This one does not. It's a tank printer, so it's not going to show that. Okay. Also, in our RIP, we include this great tool called Compass. Now, Compass is our integrated user manual. Whoops, let me pull it up here. This is our integrated user manual. Okay, so if you haven't used Compass, Compass is a great tool. As you go through the software, you'll notice that Compass also switches over. Okay, if you're using a dual screen system, you can actually have Compass running on one and the RIP running on another. So if I go to my costing, for instance, it's going to go in here to my costing tools. Okay. The color adjust. If I go into color adjust, okay, here it's going to give you some videos. Okay, and again, these videos are digital factory related videos. They're not necessarily DTF specific, but they do cover exactly what that feature does. Okay, so if you get stuck somewhere, use Compass. Compass is very helpful. Okay. The other thing that we have is, let me go back in here, go select A3 here, is nesting. I wanted to show you the nesting function. So if you have multiple images, we'll go ahead and open these. And you want to place multiple images on a single sheet, okay? So we'll go ahead and change the size of these. This one here, we'll go 8. What happened down there? And I'll just go ahead and resize some of these. And 10. And all right, so I've got multiple images here, and I want to put all of these on the same page. What I could do is select that first page, select auto nesting, right click on it, auto nest all content, and bam, you're done. Okay. Now, if I wanted to add copies, I can say maybe I want two copies of this. This one here, I want 2 copies. This one, maybe I want 2 copies. Now, you notice they're overlapped. So I could just go back to my nesting, auto nest, and it'll auto nest that new again. So, if I wanted them all on the same page, I could resize these 2, for instance, nest, nest, and there we go. Now, if you want to move the file or the image, you can move it around here as well as you like. If I import another image, all right, so if I import another image, right, so if I wanted to bring this image up here, for instance, and if I just wanted to bring that image, here we go. I want to bring that image up and kind of drop it in here. What I could do is maybe I want to change that to 90 degree maybe and drop it in here. I can actually hold my control key, click, and I could drag that image onto my sheet here. Unclick, and I can drag that up into my file. Okay. So these are some of the things you can do as far as nesting is concerned. Okay. You can also set up the queue to auto nest on import. That's another thing you can do. So if we go ahead and open up the queue, okay, you have hot folder support. Okay, so if you're not familiar with hot folder support, take a look at the Compass. It explains exactly how that works. You have your media setup. We can also set up templates. Okay, so if we go to our media setup, we can actually create a template. So in here, I'll say maybe 10 by 10, 10 by 10 centimeter template, and I want to base this on an A3 page size. And in here, I want to add my item, my position in and position down. So maybe I want 1 millimeter or 1 centimeter margin, 10 millimeters. You can specify the scaling. You can scale to fit always, scale to fit only if larger. I'll do scale to fit always. The mirroring we don't need to worry about because the queue is already set up for that. And I will click on save. And this is going to create a template. Now I can do the auto slots placement, and I can fill the page, and I can set spacing between each one. And I can either do incremental if I want different images in there, or I can do all the same. Okay, so in this case, I want to increment. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can jog these slots as well. So if I wanted to center it more on the page, okay. And if I want to drop them down some, maybe 2. 2 might be much. 1. Yeah. So if I go ahead and save that, I now have this new template down here called 10 by 10. Click close. Now if I open the queue and go to my media setup and now select template media, 10 by 10, click OK. Now I've got these templates. So now if I go in and select these images, how many images do I have in a sheet? So at 12. Select all of them. Okay. So what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and import those images to fit in that template area automatically. Okay, so this is how you can use templates for your workflow. Okay. We also have the ability to work with barcodes. Okay, so with barcode support, this can be used if you're doing, say, volume production. You have a web store where you have incoming jobs coming in. Those incoming jobs can be sent to different hot folders that you can set up for the software. And those jobs will end up in the queue area. And once they're in the queue area, you can actually register a barcode scanner. And this could be any kind of barcode scanner, with 2D or QR code, what have you, could be the scanner. And then if you have a catalog, okay, so if you have a catalog, okay, so these match up with the files I have in my job. So for instance, the skull here, which is DDLM2, okay, is the same as here. And what I do is I create a barcode to associate with that file name. So in my file, and let me set it up here real quick. Register barcode. So as you can, what I do is I scan the barcode to register it. And if I have the job in the queue here, and actually I don't want to print this, so let me go back here, change my port. All right, so now if I go in here and scan this, I'm sorry, it's actually not going to do anything right now because I don't have the queue set up to print on barcode. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and change my page type, my media setup. And we'll go A4. Go ahead and import these images again. There we go. I'm also going to configure the queue in the layout manager. If I want to rip and print using a barcode, so I'm going to go ahead and select the rip and print on barcode function. Click OK. Okay, and now at this point, if I scan, say, the file Mahi, oh, it's still generating the preview. Let's do, there we go. So if I scan that barcode, it's going to go ahead and process that file. So it's going to rip it and print it. Okay. If I do the next file and so forth. Okay. So this is how you can actually integrate barcode printing in the RIP. So if you had this printer set up, say, in a kiosk type environment, you can actually have a catalog with, preset designs, and the customer come in and say, I want that design. Okay, you scan it, and off it goes to the printer, already set, with the print mode and so forth, based on your print modes. Okay. Couple other tools here. Let's see, our options menu, if you go to tool and options, okay, so you have some options for the software, okay. Now, if you don't see all of the printer driver options, so if I go into my print mode and go here to printer options, if you don't see all of the options for your printer, it's probably because it's not activated or enabled. So if you go to tools and options, in the options, you could click here, show advanced settings and options, and this will show you basically all of the options available that you can, adjust. You also have storage and archiving area. Okay, your RIP settings. So you could set your RIP system priority, your processing priorities. Okay. Also your preview options. Now the preview option is for this preview here. If by default, we have it set to medium, so a lot of times the image in the preview will look pixelated. So if you set that to very high, that'll give you a nice, cleaner preview image. Okay. And I think that pretty much covers all of the features in our RIP. Obviously, I could probably spend another hour going over more additional features, but I don't want to bore you guys to death. So at this point, I'll leave it. If you guys have any questions, we'll go ahead and open it up for some QA. So if you guys want, you guys can unmute. And if you have any questions, I'll go ahead and answer your questions. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions. So I want to thank you guys for joining us today. And if you have any questions, if you are working with a dealer, please contact your dealer with any questions that you have. If your dealer has any issues or has any questions, they would definitely contact their sales manager. We are continually working on additional driver support and driver compatibility. Older printers, chances are we're not going to support, just due to the man hours and so forth that it takes to create a driver, especially for the DTF market, inline printing, nozzle masking. There's a lot of work that really does go into these drivers. And we do have many other projects, paid projects, that are being done. So older printers, chances are we're not going to support. Now, our newer drivers, it's possible that they will support an older device. And we are working on putting together a supported printers list as far as compatibility is concerned. But if you have any questions, concerns, feel free to email us or, again, talk to your dealer, your distributor, for more information. And again, I'd like to thank you guys for joining me today, and have a great day.